Hey guys, so this is my vintage Pfaff 130 domestic straight and zigzag stitch sewing machine, and you're seeing it sit in an industrial table right now actually. I ended up building this one for my Pfaff 545, which is a walking foot industrial machine, and that's mainly what lives in this table most of the time. But from time to time I'll pull that machine out and I'll drop in this Pfaff 130 just because I like having access to the broader working space that a table like this can provide, and also the fact that the machine sits flush with the table, which I like. So I didn't want to have to build and take up the space of a separate table for this because I don't use it as frequently. So I ended up just coming up with basically an adapter that fills the gap on the industrial table, because the problem is that most industrial machines, except for like double needle machines, which are really wide, most industrial machines are about 18 and 7/8 inches or 19 inches about from this measurement to here. So they're a lot wider, whereas the domestic machine's like 14.5 inches, and the depth is the same, so it's 7-inch depth. So I wanted to figure out how I could use the Pfaff in the table. So I actually ended up coming up with a solution. It wasn't too terribly difficult to make, or even just to figure out the measurements and stuff. I'll show you what it looks like. So I'll pull the Pfaff out here. So you can see this is the typical cutaway on an industrial table. So if you happen to run across an industrial table, or you already have one, and you like how robust it is and the size, and you want to be able to use it with, say, the vintage Pfaff or a Singer or whatever else you may have, you can. You just have to make an adapter bracket for it. So this is actually what I came up with. This is just a couple pieces of 1/2-inch maple. It's 3 pieces actually that I just had. And this is just like the prototype. I'm going to end up remaking this. I'm going to get rid of this top section. And then probably replace that with just a thin piece of steel, this same shape, but just a lower profile. And then I could just use the wood base here. But basically, there's a lip here across the bottom that's set a 1/2 inch down from where this rests, which is on top of the table surface. And so I just basically took a channel off there, 1/2 inch down, and this rests on the outside lip of the right side of the machine. The way that I sized it was I made this piece wide enough so from here to here is 14.5 inches, or whatever the width is on the machine. And then then you have to look and you use the actual end pieces as stops. So that way this can't go further to the right, so your machine won't drop out. So you just measure the distance between your stop here. This is just like the corner lip to hold the industrial machine up. So you just measure that distance, and then you know how wide you need to make this bottom piece. So that way you can use that as a stop. And then you have to have these arms, and then this is profiled for the machine, just like this corner would be. But you also have to have these arms. They can't just come out and stop, because what happens is, as the pressure gets exerted downward, if there's no arm here, if it's just a straight piece coming out, this is going to want to flip. It's going to want to go that way. So you got to have a little arm here coming out. And it doesn't necessarily have to be this long. You could probably have it maybe even coming out just this far, just enough to where the downward force is distributed across here, so where it's not going to want to flip up. So you just drop that in. You can see, you still see the wood glue, and I just wiped a little bit of stain on there to have it blend in until I remake it out of walnut to match the table. So I'll remake it out of walnut and steel, but you can just see the general shape. It's just a little section here, and that's it. And so you can drop it in, push it all the way to the right, and it's set to the width, and then you can just grab the machine and drop the machine in, and then you're good to go. And this doesn't get in the way of anything, and I mean, really, this, I could leave it, it's fine, but I will probably remake it out of steel to make it just less obvious. And more a little bit lower profile, so it's not as large. But anyway, I thought I would share for those of you that may have an industrial table, because some of these vintage industrial tables are really cool looking. Some of them are solid hardwood. So you know, some of the more modern ones are particle board. I wouldn't necessarily want to use that, but you could. And then you have an industrial sized table for your domestic machine. So it might be a good option. I just thought I'd share. I haven't seen anybody else do anything like this when I was kind of looking around for it, so just thought I'd throw it out there. So hopefully it helps somebody. If you have any questions, leave a comment. Thanks.